leverage yung mga nurses natin. Sabi ko, kung pupunta sila doon, siyempre, pag-aalanganin ka kasi ang taas ng COVID-19 doon sa kanila, di mas mabuti kung bago sila pumunta doon. Kaya vaccine na sila.
The Labor Department is distancing itself from what was supposedly a proposal to deploy more nurses to the UK and Germany in exchange for more vaccines.
The Health Department says they were not consulted. Even Britain's ambassador to the Philippines says there was no plan to link nurse recruitment with vaccines. Good evening, I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Robbie Alampay. You're watching The Big Story. The UK envoy to the Philippines says they had no plans to ever enter into a so-called vaccines for nurses deal.
But the Labor Department clarifies they do not intend to barter the country's healthcare workers for COVID-19 jabs. Dale De Vera with The Big Story.
A nurses group slams the Labor Department's vaccines for nurses proposal to the United Kingdom and Germany. They say healthcare workers should not be treated as mere commodity.
Bahagi tayo ng COVAX, ang dami na natin mga negotiations insofar as the vaccine procurement is concerned. May mga commitments, Tapos last chip? Last chip ba natin to na pati mga human resource natin, ilalagay mo na rin dun sa table for this kind of vaccine procurement.
Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello is asking for 3 million doses to exempt the countries from the deployment cap. Currently, only 5,000 workers are allowed to be deployed abroad. But Bello clarifies, nurses are not being traded for vaccines.
Hindi ko naman ginawang negotiation na leverage yung mga nurses natin. Sabi ko, kung pupunta sila doon, pag-aalanganin ka kasi ang taas ng COVID-19 doon sa kanila, di mas mabuti kung bago sila pumunta doon. Kaya vaccine na sila.
Bello also insists that President Duterte himself has shown support for the proposal.
Hindi naman siya nagsabi na huwag ka makiusap ng gano'n. Sabi na, parang very positive din ang reaction niya.
But the spokesman of the chief executive says they were not consulted on the matter.
The President was not informed of this proposal, as far as I know.
The Health Department also says they were not part of the plan. UK Ambassador Daniel Pruce meanwhile confirms speaking with Bello but denies having such agreement.
I mean, I'd say that we've got no plans to link vaccines with those conversations around the recruitment of nurses.
But Pruce vows to assist the Philippines through the COVAX facility. For News 5, Dale De Vera, we are One News.
To weigh in on this, let's bring in Philippine Nurses Association President Melbert Reyes. He's joining us live via StreamYard. Mr. Reyes, welcome to The Big Story.
Good evening, Sir Robbie, Gretchen.
Mr. Reyes, medyo iba-iba yung statements from the Department of Labor, from Malacanang, from the UK Embassy. How are the nurses taking this news? Are you perceiving this as parang tit for tat, or do you take the qualification of the Department of Labor?
Actually, we are trying to contact the Department of Labor and Employment and seek for clarification since we learned about it. Kasi the nursing community was disturbed with how it was expressed. Na para bang we are just a commodity na pwedeng i-trade for goods. Kahit na sabihin natin na it is for the benefit of the greater population, still it is unacceptable for us. Siyempre, kami mas gusto namin if we will choose to work abroad and if they will consider to open the cap of deployment, it is because the government do not want to deprive us with our rights rather than to be an asset for trades.
And nabanggit niyo yung cap sa deployment. That is a very important context here. Where does that stand? Because dati sinabi, pigilan muna natin yung mga nurses from going abroad. Pagkatapos sinabi ng Malacanang, hindi, sige, papayagan na natin sila. Where are we there? And for that matter, where do we stand right now in terms of having nurses here at home and our being able, and our entire medical and public health infrastructure being able to afford to deploy nurses abroad?
Yeah, actually, lack of vaccine should not be traded with nurses. Kasi while we both lack necessities, we should not sacrifice more. Based on the current situations, with the lack of staff within the healthcare system, with our healthcare institutions, definitely maaapektuhan yung ating healthcare system. On the other hand, working abroad is every nurse's freedom of choice to look for better opportunities. Kaya we cannot deprive nurses naman of going abroad. But then, we should not be traded for vaccines, no? So we really are parang saddened with the headlines, no, that come out yesterday, I think.
Okay, maraming salamat. That was Melbert Reyes, President of the Philippine Nurses Association. Is there really greener pasture abroad for nurses? Data on Philippine nurses exodus shows most likely. Tonight's big number, 18,500. This is the estimated number of nurses being deployed abroad each year from 2012 to 2016. This is, of course, significant considering that over the same period, the country produced an annual average of 26,000 licensed nurses. The deployment of nurses abroad prompted concerns last year on whether the country could handle the pandemic with a depleted healthcare workforce. In response, the government did issue a deployment ban on health professionals in April 2020. It was then lifted in November.
These are the other big stories tonight. After admitting that he received Sinopharm's jab, columnist Mon Tulfo will now be part of the health department's probe into the use of smuggled vaccines. After suffering serious leg injuries as his car flew off a road in Los Angeles, Tiger Woods is now reportedly stable and is responsive after undergoing surgery. And Kai Sotto's NBA dreams is put on hold for now. In a mutual decision, the Filipino prospect parts ways with the NBA G League Ignite program. These big stories after the break.
Good evening, you're still watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. The palace maintains the government does not tolerate the use of smuggled vaccines, and yet it has distanced itself from Special Envoy to China Mon Tulfo's confession that he and a select few, including agents of the PSG, already received Sinopharm jabs. Maricel Halili with the details.
The Health Department will now include broadcaster Mon Tulfo in its investigation into unauthorized vaccinations in the country. The broadcaster and columnist admitted in an interview with 1PH sa Totoo Lang that he had already received shots from Sinopharm even without FDA approval.
But as to those people who are using the vaccines without EUA and also suppliers supplying vaccines without EUA, ito po ay illegal at maaari po kayo masanction at mabigyan ng penalties because of this.
In a separate interview with the chiefs, Tulfo admitted he has applied to be Sinopharm's distributor. He sees no conflict even if he is a presidential appointee.
Besides, ang special envoy to China is just the honorific. Ang trabaho niya is 1 peso a year. I'm not a government official.
He also bears even the president prefers Sinopharm.
In fact, si Pangulong Digong nagsabi na gusto niyang magpabakuna Sinopharm in public.
Well, actually,
Sinabi niya
Ambassador,
mismo sa akin yan.
He even said that some cabinet members also received jabs. The palace did not confirm Tulfo's revelations.
Pero inaantay po talaga natin ang aksyon ng FDA sa mga bagay-bagay neto.
The FDA reiterates using unauthorized vaccines comes with health risks. Sinopharm has yet to apply for an emergency use authorization in the country.
Kaya nga po iniimbestigahan siya dahil talaga nga pong hindi naman po maganda na nalalaman natin na may mga ganitong mga nagpapabakuna ng hindi po dumadaan sa tamang proseso.
Recall that no less than President Duterte revealed that some members of his security group have already been inoculated. Only 3 manufacturers have received EUA from the FDA. These are Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and Sinovac. For News 5, Maricel Halili, We Are One News.
The DOH has yet to establish any direct link between the surge in cases in Pasay City and the reported UK variant cluster in MRT3. Spokesperson Maria Rosario Berjere says additional samples in Pasay City will be first collected for genome sequencing. A patient positive for the UK variant lives in Pasay. She is a mother of an MRT3 personnel working at the depot where the UK variant case cluster was identified. The city has 435 active cases so far with 55 barangays under ECQ.
Wala pa rin tayong nakitang link, no? Tinignan po natin yung mga kaso sa ngayon, hindi naman po natin nakikita na talagang directly linked with this specific case that we have identified.
Though COVID-19 has a high recovery rate, the battle is not yet over for some of its survivors. Some have to endure long COVID. What is it exactly and how long before one recovers? Let's find out in JC Cosico's report.
5 months since recovering from COVID-19, Riza's sense of smell has yet to normalize. Breathing also remains a challenge.
Kahit nakahiga ako, parang ang bigat ng katawan, konting kilos, konting galaw, ramdam mo na hinihingal.
Barney Heroy still has difficulty sleeping 7 months after contracting the virus.
Nagigising ka sa gabi and then parang ang bilis ng heartbeat mo.
The two are experiencing what is called long COVID. This is when effects still manifest even after recovery.
Medyo tumatagal ang komplikasyon in terms of yung epekto ng inflammation sa katawan natin. Kaya naapektuhan din yung mga ganong klaseng sintomas na tumutuloy pa rin maski wala na yung mikrobyo or yung virus sa katawan.
Infectious disease expert Dr. Ron Jean Sulante estimates that around 1,000 recovered patients experience long COVID. Symptoms range from difficulty in breathing, loss of smell, taste, and appetite to sleeping difficulties. Its duration varies. Some even develop anxiety and depression.
So, hindi naman yung dahil sa effect ng COVID, but because meron pa silang nararamdaman, kaya yun yung mga inano natin, na inire-refer natin for counseling or for psychological or psychiatric evaluation.
Health experts say these symptoms should be monitored and medical help must be sought if they worsen. The health department is still studying the long COVID condition among survivors.
Meron din po tayong yung mga nagtatrabaho ng COVID-19 CPGs and all, no? So kasama po yan sa pinag-aaralan nila. We'll just need to wait until they have data already.
Solante advises survivors to still get vaccinated to avoid further complications. For News 5, JC Cosico, We Are One News.
Time for an express look at some of the day's big stories. Due to global shortage on vaccine supply, the health department says its target to inoculate 70% of the population may even take until 2023. The agency targets to finish inoculation by mid-2022, and the DOH is also looking at a best-case scenario of finishing vaccination by end of the year. The U.S. State Department names Pasig City Mayor Vico Sotto as one of the 12 recipients of the International Anti-Corruption Champions Award. The agency describes Sotto as a standard bearer for a new generation of Filipino politicians who prioritize transparency initiatives. And Malacanang spokesman Harry Roque says President Duterte will deliver a public address tonight after his meeting with IATF members. He's expected to announce the country's new quarantine classifications for the month of March. Time for another quick break. When we return, the Samahang Basketball ng Pilipinas still has Kai Sotto's back after the Wonder Kid exited Team Ignite. And let's find out the latest status of golf legend Tiger Woods after he figured in a car crash. The details next.
Good evening, I'm Robbie Alampay. You're still watching The Big Story. Additional pork supply has landed in Metro Manila wet markets, but retailers and producers are still not happy. But for the DA, the price cap is doing what it is meant to do. Shiloh Francisco has the details.
Hog deliveries facilitated by the Agriculture Department have arrived in some wet markets in Quezon City. With one hog selling at 230 pesos a kilo, vendors at Mega Q-Mart managed to comply with the price ceiling. At Commonwealth Market, 30 heads of hogs were sold to 4 stalls. But this is not enough. Some stalls are still unable to sell pork.
Dapat mga 2-3 baboy namin para makabayad kami ng pwesto, may kaunting kita. Eh ngayon ilan ang baboy namin, isa lang. Uwit pa ng liit.
Dapat lahat sana lahat mabigyan din para pare-pareho, masunod ng price list.
Apart from shipments being diverted to nearby provinces, the DA says volume was also affected by weather disturbances and LGU restrictions. It also depends on the day supplier.
Yung nanggagaling ng Mindanao, yun yung murang baboy. Yung nanggagaling ng Calabarzon, medyo talagang yun yung mahirap yung presyo.
Pork producers say this is not a temporary problem. Speaking to One News's The Chiefs, the Pork Producers Federation says Metro Manila requires a daily supply of 10,000 hogs, way above the 4,000 estimated by the DA.
Kung totoo yung sinasabi nila, dapat marami tayong baboy dito sa Metro Manila.
The DA proposes to import 400,000 metric tons of pork under the Minimum Access Volume Plus. Stakeholders warn against the move. They say this is twice the country's expected shortage supply.
Hindi na makapag-compete talaga yung ating mga producer. In the long term, mawawala itong industry.
hog raisers plan to seek help from Malacanang. The DA says it will study if the price cap should be lifted a month after implementation. For now, they deem the move successful.
Successful ang price ceiling in effect na ngayon ay, kasi dati 400, 450 ang baboy. Ngayon wala na tayong nakikita 400 to 450. Ang monitoring namin, meron pa nagbebenta 350, 360, pero wala na yung 400 to 450. In effect, the price ceiling is successful.
Meanwhile, no threat still on chicken supply. The DA says the country remains bird flu free. Ongoing surveillance is being conducted to prevent the disease from entering the Philippines. Shaila Francisco, We Are One News.
Let's take a look at the biggest stories on print and online. The Philippine Star reports that Filipinos spend around 23,600 pesos for beer on a yearly basis. According to financial website Expensivity, the country ranks near the middle of the World Beer Index, a list topped by Germans who spend $1,900 or roughly 93,000 pesos per year. This one from Business World, the country's score in legal gender equality is now down to 78.8% due to lack of new reforms. The World Bank notes, however, that the country's latest rating remains higher compared to the global average of 76%. And calls for justice continue for Phil-Am Angelo Quinto, who reportedly died after he was physically restrained and asphyxiated by police authorities. Stated in a News 5 report, the Quinto family has filed a legal claim alleging wrongful death and assault against a local police department in California.
In world news, golf star Tiger Woods is currently awake, responsive, and recovering after he suffered multiple injuries from a car accident in California. Woods' Twitter account confirms that the golfer has undergone a long surgical procedure on his lower right leg and ankle. Woods was on his way to the Rolling Hills Country Club when his car careened off a road and rolled down a hillside in Los Angeles. The LA County Sheriff reports that the golf champion was traveling at a greater speed than normal before he lost control of his SUV.
Time for the big stories in sports. Kai Sotto's NBA dream hits a snag. The Pinoy basketball phenom won't be rejoining his team Ignite in the NBA G-League bubble. The league said it was a mutual decision between Sotto and Team Ignite. Sotto left for the Philippines last month, supposedly to train with Gilas Pilipinas for the cancelled Qatar leg of the FIBA Asia Cup qualifiers. No news yet from Kai Sotto's camp on what his next move will be. But the Samahang Basketball ng Pilipinas says they still support Kai's NBA dream, even after the fallout with Ignite. And the ball is rolling in Congress for the naturalization of 2 foreign athletes. The Senate Committee on Justice approved the bill seeking to grant Filipino citizenship to Ateneo Blue Eagle Center Angelo Kwame and United Cities Bienvenido Marañon, who is originally from Spain. The goal is to have Kwame, who hails from West Africa, become a Philippine citizen in time for the FIBA Asia Cup. Catch my exclusive interview with Angelo Kwame and Bienvenido Marañon tomorrow here on The Big Story.
Just when you thought they've done it all, South Korean boy group BTS hits another milestone. The 7-piece makes history with a debut appearance on MTV Unplugged. The series has featured some of the biggest musical acts from Nirvana to Eric Clapton. And BTS is the latest addition.
MTV, let's go!
A soulful rendition of Coldplay's Fix You proved to be the highlight of their Unplugged appearance. Channel subscribers may catch the replay of the entire performance tonight on MTV Asia, Channel 151 and MTV Live HD, Channel 280. For News 5, MJ Marfori, we are One News.
In Karachi, Pakistan, police officers are stepping up their fight against criminality. They're training to shoot while on blades. For a month now, the policemen have been practicing their balance on rollerblades and their leap over stairs. The 20 units of 10 men and 10 women also lift and lower their unloaded guns in unison as they are rolling. Supposedly, the move is aimed to help them go after snatchers, especially those riding motorcycles. But if road conditions are poor, then that's a different thing. What their chief of police calls innovative, some call dangerous. Imagine weapon-wielding cops running around in rollerblades.
Kaya ba natin yan sa
Ewan
Pilipinas?
ko. I mean, they said, imagine them nadadapa. Diba? I can imagine that in a park, but sa mga lubak-lubak, dito nga, yung truck natatalisod
Tsaka bawal magkatsan, ano? Baka medyo mabagal. That wraps up today's big story. My name is Gretchen Ho. Catch us again tomorrow at 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250.
Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. I'm Robbie Alampay, and we are One News. Good evening.